Hey guys, this is a clip from a podcast I did with Dom from Dominating Your Investments. In this clip, we specifically talk about the long game on Palantir. What does it mean to be long on Palantir? Dom really compares Palantir to a lot of companies, primarily Amazon, that really took a long-term perspective and awarded shareholders over the long term. So if you invested in them when you were 30, by the time you were 50, you did really, really well. And we don't know how long that's going to take for Palantir, but it is important to have that long-term perspective. Obviously, 2000 to 2020 is a lot different from 2022 to 2030. I mean, $1 trillion in market cap might not even mean anything by 2030, right? So times are changing, things are exponentially growing, things can get faster, especially given the growth cycle we're in, right? Amazon was in a time where technology wasn't really that crazy, and Palantir is in a time where they're kind of making the crazy technology. So a lot of things can happen, but it's important to have a long-term mindset. And I specifically asked them in this video about share dilution and really how do you feel about the company taking a long approach and hurting shareholders in the short term in order for there to be some long-term momentum. So check out the full podcast with Dom. He's a cybersecurity analyst and he understands the space very, very well. And these are his thoughts on playing the long term with Palantir.
I think that people are looking at this too short term, right? Like Amazon didn't become a rock star stock overnight. Right? It took 20 plus years to really see the true power of compounding. That's the same thing that we're going to see, and same thing with Salesforce, and with what this company is doing. They're doing it methodically, they're doing it strategically, and they know the end game. They're patient. I love what Alex said. Alex said, hey, if you want a short-term stock, ours is probably not for you, and don't invest in us. Like go put your money elsewhere, right? Like you're going to have to endure some volatility, but it's going to be worth it in the end, right? We have a big vision. And so I love investing in founder-led companies, people who have visions and are committed. And you can see very similar things with him and Elon in the fact that they're only paid in stock, right? That tells you the founder believes that, hey, if the ship goes down, then I should go down with it.
Right.
And so their level of commitment is very high.
Now, you and I think you would agree, are not the smartest people in the world.
No, definitely not.
Some of the more smarter people we assume are in fancy high-rise apartments in New York, working at hedge funds and investment banks that control most of the institutional capital that's ultimately going to move this type of stock. Why don't those people, obviously, given the intense amount of research they've done, see that long-term vision? And why isn't there a ton of money being flowing into the stock while it's cheap?
I think there's a couple of reasons. Number one, most of those guys don't operate on long-term investments. They operate in a yearly cycle. What we're seeing right now, where people are selling off stuff at the end of the year and getting into stuff that was successful just to say, hey, we were in the right stocks at the right time, and it's all a game, right? And then we're going to see it all switch up in January. They have different objectives than what retail investors have, right? For long-term investors. So I think that they can control when they want to get in, when they want to. There is more institutional investing going on in Palantir now. If you look at it, I think it's in the high 30s.
Around 36%.
Yeah. And it was like low 20s just 2 quarters ago, right? So people are starting to see this story unfold. If we were to look at Palantir 12 months ago from now, I think it's fair to say we can make an assumption that their marketing's better. They've hired more salespeople. They understand there's a game to be played in corporate where you can't just all be engineers, right? You have to have a sales group. And I think Karp and Thiel and Cohen and all of those guys realize that. They're at that inflection point. And really the only negative that someone can say on the stock is that the stock-based compensation dilutes the shareholders or whatever they.
That's what I was going to ask. What is your opinion on that?
But I'm fine with it because I'm in it for 20 plus years. I don't think they're going to have SBC like this for 20 years. But do I think they need it to compete against Google, Microsoft, and everyone else who can pay millions of dollars for people, the best of the best? Yeah, they do. And I want their employees to have the same skin in the game that Karp does.
Right.
So if that means that we're not profitable for, or they're not profitable for 3 years, then they're not profitable. But what I'm looking for is the indicators. Is the business growing? is the business getting more operationally efficient? And that's why I look at contribution margin, because if you look, their contribution margin has gotten better every single quarter.
Right.
And if you look at their commercial growth, their revenue is getting better. And so when you start seeing these things, as well as commercial customer growth, those are the indicators that they're getting to market faster. Customers aren't leaving and they're buying more as they go through the scale phase. And the company is being very methodical on who they invest in from a SPAC perspective. Most of their SPACs have done okay. And if you look at their customer base from a commercial standpoint, a lot of those customers have had great earnings releases lately.
Yeah.
So those are the things that I look for. I'm more qualitative than quantitative. I believe if, another thing that where I do go quantitative is debt. They have zero debt, right?
Yeah.
Zero debt, 78% gross margins, and you're growing at 49% year over year. Check, check, check.
Yeah.
So everyone's hangups either on, well, I'm impatient. The stock is now it's 18, now it's 19. It just can't crack 20. I'm paying attention to, okay, they just got a whole bunch of new patents approved this past couple of days that they had for networking segmentation. They are making more partnerships. Their SPAC companies are getting approved. Now they're going public. So we'll see some residual from that. Yep. So I just want to keep seeing progress. And if they continue to keep putting information out there and showing progress and getting the word out, the product will stand on itself. It's just a matter of time. And so it's not my only stock. I have like 50 plus stocks, but it is 12% of my portfolio. But I think it checks a lot of boxes. When I went through my investing scorecard, I got the second highest score at like 86. And I think NVIDIA was 87. So.
Yeah, no, it makes sense to me. Last couple questions I have. I talked to Tom about what it would take for them to become $1 trillion company, and he says they have to give some type of consumer product. Do you see like a world in which they actually go consumer? And do you think they're kind of playing with these SPACs to kind of test like a foundry for builders? What does that look like for consumer? And they're dabbling in the water there.
Yeah. So me and Tom had a fun conversation about this, and I go back and forth. He kind of checkmated me just on the fact that when we were talking about this exact topic, he pulled up the top 100 biggest companies by market cap. Yep. And I think almost all of them, or at least the top like 50, had some kind of consumer reach and product. So I didn't have much to stand on after that point. So Tom, if you're watching this, for now, you're right. You are right. And I do think that I think they'll have a consumer product. I think they will get something. I keep saying I'd like them to fix my email problem, make email more efficient in communication.
Right.
But I think that they're going to make more partnerships with more companies and make their products better. And I think we'll eventually see that trickle down to the commercials, the actual consumer side, right? And it's just not the top priority right now.
Yeah, I agree.
They have to really crush that Fortune 500 and get that. Then, start, they're already starting to build products, platforms, and solutions through other companies. So I would, you're basically seeing founder as a byproduct of other companies and what their product is built, right? You look at Wejo, I would anticipate Wejo to have something very similar to what Airbus has done with Skywise. And that's their, core product, right?
Right.
So I do think they will do that. I still am not 100% sure that they have to have a consumer product to be $1 trillion market cap, just because their SPAC investments and how they're essentially being the bottom foundation of whatever product you want to put on there and send it out as a company can be done. And there's limitless to that, right?
Right.
I just
like if AWS was its own company, I think we could pretty much agree it's close to $1 trillion company.
Yeah.
Right. And if they're the natural operating system, the ontology, as they call it, for every single company, like that seems like it can get there close.
Yeah. Yeah. So, and if they don't, they don't. Like, I mean, like, I'm not trying to think of the word here. I won't be disappointed if they end up being a $500 billion company and that's where they max out. Right.
Yeah.
I got in at an early stage. I think this company has a long way to go. Definitely think there'll be more volatility. My only bear case is if the leadership team leaves. I just think there's a lot of untapped stuff. So as long as they keep hiring the right people, keeping the people there, and if that means by SBC, so be it. They have something special that they're. I mean, if you watch their company culture videos and everything else, like they're what companies want to be when they get too big and they can't be that anymore. So if they keep that company culture and keep everything in check, it's just a matter of time, in my opinion.